jumped up, and later on they found mussels throughout the Colorado River system below Powell. They have mussels down below the dam now, and so therefore it's finally made its way through that system. And then you can take those two concepts and apply them to the Snake River and the Columbia, and that's the idea of what we're trying to protect. And that's what we have left.
So is it a case once they're in an environment like Powell or Mead, it's impossible to eradicate them? They're there. It's just a matter of containing.
We can go over a couple more on the map. Is how much red do you see? Lots of red. I mean, it's horrible. And then how much green do you see? And then purple is supposedly the success stories, and you can see there's only 3 of them. And I only know of one. And, one case study, it was a rock quarry, and that was a system that they could really close down. No inflow, no outflow. It was a rock quarry, so it was man-made anyways, I guess, and they could deal with the collateral damage that comes with doing that extensive treatment. So we're talking, a lot of fish kills and a lot of plant kills and a lot of collateral damage. So yeah, you're right. When they get into a place as dynamic as Powell or Mead, I mean, what do? There's not a whole lot of options at this point. There's more local treatments that you can do in, say, a marina or in a bay where you have a lot of boats and you want to protect those boats from getting infested, just due to the amount of work you're going to have to do on your boat once it gets mussels to clean them off. That's more localized. You'd set up curtains and you would do treatments in that area. I don't think you would be able to do a lake-wide, reservoir-wide treatments. Everybody got a, yeah.
Are there older maps that show like how much coverage was there before it became actually before people were actually really concerned? So they were in St. Lawrence Seaway, and nobody probably cared then because they didn't recognize it. And then they came down. Were they already in the Mississippi and stuff, and all of a sudden it started red flagging things, or was it a lot earlier than that?
You guys mind me jumping around PowerPoints? I can show you something.
I can just wait for an answer.
Okay.
I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, and I can find it and show you at the end. It's we've got several slides with this same map, and it's through the years.
Oh, okay.
And it shows kind of that wildfire takeoff spread.
Yeah.
And it really in the West, I don't think it was important until 2007 when they came into Mead. It was kind of our back door. Right, and it kind of lit the fires, and so it was kind of brewing in the Great Lakes for a while, ever since I was born. So, it's been back there. But yeah, we do have I think there's 10 or so slides that kind of show that progression of it moving down the system or on boats moving around, and we can dig that up when we get to the end.
Okay.
So we'll just go through 3 characteristics that are kind of drives home the message. So the first one is just reproduction like crazy. These guys get to an area, they're unchecked, and they have a couple of goals in mind, and that's to get there, to settle on the substrate, eat, and reproduce. And so you'll see exponentially, this is what they saw in Mead, is that typical exponential curve and prolific reproduction. And then they came up with this equation down at the bottom where if you just had one single female mussel producing 1 million eggs per spawn, then you take into account 10% mortality, and that's even way high. Even if you took in 1%, it would be a huge number. After 5 years, you have this massive number that I can't even comprehend. And I mean, there's case studies out of the Great Lakes that they're saying that there's 40, I don't even know what word they came up with, but mussels down at the bottom of the lake bed. And it's a massive number that I'm not sure how many zeros are behind, but it's far more than trillion, billion. Yeah, it's a lot of mussels. The second one is they attach with thistle threads. Like I was saying, it's the only freshwater bivalve that would be here to attach, and it's invasive. So all of our natives don't attach. You might say, well, there are some snails that seem like they're attached, but it's actually a suction cup kind of apparatus down at the bottom of their base, and they can use that. But these are actually attached by abyssal threads, and what that does is that they get into places and they clog them. So you think of the trash racks on dams, the cooling racks on dams, any kind of a pipe. And I always, when I talk about folks down the Snake River that use it for irrigation, their nozzles on the pivots go down to a 16th. And you think of a mussel, even a partial in a shell, it's going to clog up pretty quick. And so that's another pretty bad.
So they take out all the nutrients in the water for fish?
Yeah. That's kind of
That's
third.
next.
The third male. So they come in, they reproduce, and then they do quite well, and then they attach to something, and then they eat. So it's like a buffet. And in a pipe, all they have to do is just open up, and the buffet goes past them. They don't even, it's just constant water flow. So they filter feed. It's a freshwater bivalve, and the reason why they call that is one way in, one way out. And in other PowerPoints, we have a picture where it shows a mussel opening up, and you can see those two valves, and they're filtering phytoplankton, and the plankton is the base of the food chain that everybody else needs, as far as all your macroinvertebrates and your fish food. And so what they're seeing in the Great Lakes, and you can think of the tremendous fisheries they have over there, they're seeing fewer and smaller fish. And for that industry over there, it took a big hit. Along with this, when they filter that stuff out, they excrete and they basically throw up the stuff that they don't want. And what they don't want is usually causing blue-green algae. So it's really high in phosphorus, and it affects the nutrient, the natural nutrient cycle of the lake. And it takes all the nutrients from the middle of the water column, brings it down to the bottom, redistributes it to the bottom. It ends up having this blue-green algae that ends up going to the sides of the water body and can affect, other people and birds and mammals and,
So they're happy and everybody else isn't?
What's that?
They're happy eating what they want, and
Yeah.
then everybody else.
Yeah, they get the
Doesn't work.
leftovers that doesn't, it's not very good. So, and this can affect, so if you have a wastewater treatment or a drinking water treatment plant, it'll affect the odor and the taste, is one of the other case studies.
I take it they're not good to eat.
No. One of the
They eat so
differences-
many mussels in Europe,
Yeah, we were like, oh, maybe we just eat them.
Yeah.
Stickers or something, but they accumulate toxins and botulism. So when botulism is a natural occurrence, but when you have mussels, say in the Great Lakes, when they have their great migratory birds come in, you see these big loon and geese and waterfowl die-offs, and that's because they increase the rate of botulism outbreaks. What they're doing is they're pulling all the food out of the water column, they're accumulating the toxins within that, and when the bird comes along, they eat the mussel or the inside of the mussel, and then they get affected by that.
So
The
is
same
that
thing with
Clostridium
humans.
botulism?
I think
Oh,
so.
okay.
I'm not sure which strain it is, but it's a natural occurrence. It just increases the occurrence of the plague.
So they are kind of more anaerobic once they inside,
Yeah,
because that's an anaerobic bacteria.
I think so. I think it's just around those mussel beds.
Uh-huh.
Generally, the oxygen levels would be so depleted that maybe even in the water column that would be quite well. I'm not sure. I'm not very big. So we see this case study here, 2006 and 2003. See, we had an initial infestation here, just a few mussels in an isolated area. 3 years, and this is what we're up against. You can see that rapid growth. And then you just think of what that smells like. So you think of a property owner being right by that, and you think of what that would be. You think of going out and walking on that. Think of that where all your local native critters that like to go down there and drink water or eat. That's definitely not preferred.
So is this in Canton? Where's this out?
Yeah, this is in Kansas. This is one of the water bodies in Kansas that they're up against. I'm not sure where this one is at, El Dorado. I'm not sure where that one is at. We'll go over a few impacts. We've already talked about these a little bit with how they filter and accumulate toxins. But you can think of these more specifically for our threatened and endangered species. We have 4 listed snails in the Snake River Basin that we're actively trying to manage and look after. When you get a species like this that comes in to a species that's already threatened and endangered, having a rough time to begin with, this can definitely cause some damage to those. On top of that, you can see how the mussels affect the nutrients in the water column, where they bring it down and then redistribute it, being deposited waste in the bottom of the lake bed. And the waste is not a preferred nutrient source for other critters. And then that can cause that blue-green algae. Go into some loss of recreation. So we covered native species a little bit, but then we have decreased tourism just because folks don't want to go to that water body. They decide, well, I'm going to go recreate over there where they don't have mussels. This could drastically change what we have going on here at Payette Lake. And reducing the property values. I can't remember what the last quote was on a foot, a foot of shoreline property value on Payette Lake, but
Too much?
it was a lot. I can't afford that. It will reduce those property values. Sharp shells on the beach, we have to always have a bloody toe down the bottom right picture. So when you're walking on these beaches, you can't help but get a cut. And then also how it damages boats. So it'll come in, get an infestation on the back of your boat. It'll lock up propellers. It'll lock up your drive. It'll lock up the cooling systems. And so you're going to have to pay somebody to then take care of that issue and do the maintenance on that. To the point where now folks down in Meade are using hydro hoists to lift their boats up out of the water to keep them from getting infested with mussels. This is a slide of the Great Lakes. We'll see these massive cycles of exponential growth, and then they'll eat themselves out of house and home, and then here they start coming down, and they'll have these massive die-offs. And you can see like shells on the beach. This is after a year of massive die-off. You'll have the wave action. They'll just wash up truckloads of shells on the beach from the bottom of the lake bed.
So they leave them there?
They usually go in there and they use a loader and scoop them up. I've seen a few pictures of them having to do that. If you leave them there, that calcium is in there, then going to be redistributed back to the water column.
Right.
And you can see that big nutrient cycle once again.
Overload the water system.
Yep. Yeah, at least they have clear water. It made their visibility for scuba divers go from, 30 feet to 300 feet. Just because they're taking away that phytoplankton. Okay, getting down to the end of the mussel deal. So take home message. They're hard to eradicate. Impossible. Only a few successful case studies, and that's in a very controlled system. Probably not going to work as well in, say, the Snake River if we get it in Milner, for example. Prevention is the best, and that is the mechanism that we are working off of right now. That's the idea of the boat inspection program, and so that's our prevention arm. So we're out there standing by the side of the road, watching for boats to come by. It's mandatory for them to stop, and then we inspect the boat and decontaminate if needed to prevent it from coming in. Along with prevention is that education arm. And that's where I think groups like this can be our biggest advocate out there in the field and do that education.
The boat species sticker, I'm just curious to know, does the money really go towards funneling, or does it get, like a lot of other programs, taken in and gets shuffled around?
No, it's actually a really direct fund. The way this the sticker works, we'll go through a slide here in a little bit that kind of breaks down the price. But that money goes through Parks and Rec, and then it gets funneled down through very directly to the invasive species fund. $2 of each sticker automatically goes back to the vendor. I think now it's $1.50 goes back to the vendor. But as far as that core fund goes to the invasive species fund, and actually at least 80% of that goes directly on the field to the inspection sites. The rest of it goes to monitoring and then education, outreach kind of material, so.
So do you have any idea on how much you take in or the state takes in from the stickers?
Yeah. In the past, it's been roughly about 850,000, and now it's just over 1 million, so we've increased quite a bit, and our spending is coming right up to that mark. And so what we're getting in for funding is gonna go out in the field that year. That's a good question. Now, folks are always asking, you know, that sticker fund, where is that money actually going? And I would say if you're paying a $2 sticker, probably $7, $8 of that is going to the check stations. Our concept is still based off prevention, because we're a state that doesn't have the mussels yet. And therefore, if and when we do get the mussels, that will shift, but we're still under that core prevention concept.
Is there any sort of check station here at the lake?
This one there's not, and there's reasoning behind that. Since Idaho Interior doesn't have mussels, we've placed our funding towards the boundaries. The arteries coming into the state is our main focus, so Malad, I-15, Highway 93 just north of Jackpot, Cotterell. Those are 3 primary stations that open up early, and they're driven just due to the fact that we have mussels down in the southeast portion of the United States. And those are meant to intercept boats coming up. We have one at Redfish, and that is just due to the interest up there from the Forest Service, and they fund that. So they came to us and said, well, you guys have a program in place, we want a check station, why don't we give you guys the funding that's separate from the invasive species sticker, we give you guys a pot of money and you guys put some people on the ground. All the other stations are at the borders. It's a good question.
And because it's, you're concerned with the whole Columbia River Basin, is it still states working independently, or is there a concerted effort making sure that Montana's doing their share of it and Oregon's doing their, is there some sort of, cooperative effort there, or are the states just independently trying to?
The states are still doing their program, but we're working better together. We're playing together much better.
Because you could do all you want, but if nobody's doing anything,
And if you're not working
Washington.
together, I guess.
yeah.
Our main goal is to protect Idaho, but that's in the idea that we're playing with everybody else so that we're all protected. So Idaho catches a lot of boats for Washington, Oregon, and Montana, and definitely a lot of boats for Canada. The boats that we catch 30% of them are only going to Idaho. And how we're playing together is when we catch a boat or when we're notified about a boat, we always let those other states know, and we give them all the information that they need to contact that boat owner and say, I understand you're coming back home. When you get here, we need to look at your boat.
So, and then by the education, they'll clean their boat with their water?
Yeah. Or find somewhere to take care of it. So we'll provide them information on where they can go to get decontaminated hot washed. In each region, or in each state. So if they're going to Canada, they're not going to Idaho, so they're going to keep going. And I'm going to contact Canada, tell them that they're coming, and I'm going to turn around and educate the boat owner and say, when you get into Canada, here's who you call, here's where you go. It doesn't cost anything, stop and get it taken care of.
Oh, so it really doesn't, they just need to take care of it.
They just need to take care of it.
People pretty cooperative with that.
Yeah, we've only had a couple of cases here and there, but that's where the education comes through when you explain how bad these critters are. They're on board. It's no different from somebody washing their ATV after going through some noxious weeds. When you tell them how bad that weed is and tell them a case study about, hey, here's this guy, and this guy's working this hard trying to take care of this issue, this could happen here,